Hello everyone, I'm Tracy and I'm here with Shane. Today's video is part 2 of the coverage that I've been doing of the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. As many of you have probably heard, there's been significant flooding in the Blue Ridge Mountain area. So we're going to be going into that. And before we get started, if you have not subscribed, please do so before you leave, and comment, like, and share this video so we can let as many people know. The mainstream is censoring a lot of this information that we're going to be sharing. So it's really important that we let people know about reports such as this one. Hurricane Helene made landfall on the 26th of September in Cedar Key, Florida, and then it continued to travel north and it hit the Blue Ridge Mountain Range and it dumped a significant amount of rain, and water levels were up 20 to 40 feet above normal. So that is really, really significant. You'll see some of the footage if you haven't already about that. It's double the rainfall of Katrina, and today there are over 1,000 people missing and over 150 people declared dead. Although, as we've seen in Maui, the media is often not very forthcoming with the true numbers of deceased and missing. So there are people still stranded in this area because of the roads, and children, elderly people, and everyone are running out of water, food and supplies, medication, baby formula. There are people, the community and the surrounding areas, people are helping, but the federal government seems to be preventing a lot of that rescue and relief from getting there. So again, another similarity with Maui. Also, there's a loss of communication. So cell service is very spotty. They also don't have running water or electricity. And there was also, I don't know about all of the areas, but there's a lack of evacuation notice. A lot of people just got a notice right before the storm hit, by the time it was too late to get out of the area. So I'm gonna hand it over to Shane now, and he's gonna go into some of the evidence of geoengineering that we saw with the hurricane. So I'll let Shane go into that.
All right, thanks, Tracy. So in our book, we actually covered some of the history of weather warfare and weather modification, which actually began back in 1947 with an experiment to drop dry ice into the hurricane. And what they did is that after it passed across Florida and was headed out to the Atlantic, they dropped a bunch of dry ice into the hurricane, and it actually made a left turn and made another landfall. Now, it was somewhat publicly known about that experiment. And so since it made a second landfall, there have always been issues regarding liability when it comes to weather modification. So ever since this 1947 experiment, a lot of the weather modification projects have gone underground. And this includes the ones that I covered in the book, which I will probably cover at some point in a future video. But there was Project Storm Fury in the 1960s, which did hurricane modification. They were mostly focused on hurricane damage reduction. They were able to reduce the damage reduction potential of the winds by up to 40%. And they're also able to reduce the amount of rain that it drops over land. They can also steer the hurricanes as well. And I know that in our previous video, she covered a little bit of Into Thin Air. He had a video that went pretty much viral. He got like 3 million views out of it. And I do want to show, he's got an update to that as well. So I do want to show Into Thin Air's videos, and then I'm going to go into some more details.
Welcome back. We are awaiting the arrival of major Category 4 Hurricane Helene. This thing is an absolute monster. But take a look at this anomaly that's shooting down almost to where we're going to see landfall. It's very interesting. I'm curious to see if this thing actually lands right on top of where we think landfall is going to be. Now, there's something else kind of shooting out here underneath this layer of moisture over the southeast. It looks like it's coming from either northern Florida or a radar tower in southern Georgia. But the main one right here, look at this big beam that shoots down right to about here. That's where we're expecting landfall, give or take. So now we're going to zoom in and see exactly where this thing points to, because that is not your normal beam that you see coming from these radar. It's definitely coming from the state of Georgia, probably underneath this mess here. It's coming this way, and there's a cross of that other beam either coming from northern Florida or southern Georgia. All right, this is about as close as we're going to get. We're going to see one anomaly over here in the western panhandle, and then we're going to look for that shot we were just looking at. We move one frame, frame, boom, here's those weird waves that come off. We see this a lot underneath heavy systems, especially when they're approaching the coastlines. Now we're going to look for our beam here, and we're going to see it pretty well. It's right about there. So this is pretty odd. I want to know what's going on here, and there's our cross beam, again, looking like it's coming from Florida itself, so it's coming up into this direction. This one is certainly coming down from Georgia into Florida, almost to where we're seeing landfall. If we backtrack a little bit, you can see here the momentum wants to bring this storm up and then kind of right into this area here. Maybe a little north, but that's what we're seeing. But take a look at these anomalies every couple frames, specifically that one we are looking at. There's another big one right there. It's kind of a sweeper. It's got multiple beams and it sweeps left to right. And now watch as we approach. You're going to see a bunch of little ones, and then we're going to see our landfall beam. That's the only thing I can think of naming it right now. There it is. Boom, right there. So let's see how close this actually gets to where landfall takes place.
All right. And as it turns out, that landfall was within about 10 or 15 miles of that spot on the coastline. It actually made landfall in Perry, Florida, or about 10 to 15 miles southwest of Perry, Florida, which is in the Big Bend area of Florida, of the Florida coastline. Now, I do want to mention that the skinny beams that we saw were most likely for atmospheric heating. They can also ionize the air a little bit. But the parallel wave lines that we saw are most likely interference patterns, which could be microwave interference or it could be scalar in nature. I'm not going to go into too much detail on scalar here, but it is one of those suppressed technologies that is not necessarily admitted to. But scalar could also be involved here, especially when we see standing waves, those patterns of parallel lines that actually don't move, the ones that stand in place. So now Into Thin Air has done, since then, he's done an update to this video. And I want to play that one here to show you guys.
All right, my friends, no time to waste here. Did you know that the United States has multiple patents on how to steer and control hurricanes and tornadoes? Yes, this is very real, and it's backed by sources, as well as our own NOAA website, which discusses weather manipulation and what steps you or I would have to take in order to do our own weather manipulation. My friends, this is no joke. Many people believe that weather manipulation was used for Hurricane Helene, then somehow coincidentally stalled over the rare lithium producing towns of Western and North Carolina, which is the exact location of the largest lithium deposit we have in the United States. Now, something to keep in mind while moving forward, ever since we left Afghanistan, we have lost the ability to mine lithium there, where most of it used to come from. Now we are stuck having to fill this insane demand we have for this lithium right here in the United States. Once again, the largest deposit being right over the towns that just got completely destroyed by this hurricane. Alright, so before I tie this all up with this lithium situation, this video you're looking at right now went super viral over the last few days. We have over 3 million views on this clip here, where we are talking about these weird anomalies that were taking place right before landfall of Hurricane Helene. There's a lot of controversy about what's going on here, but these things pointed directly to where we saw landfall. Not only that, but we saw some weird scalar looking beams in there, a lot of weird stuff that we were breaking down, and it's causing a lot of talk about this situation, which is the point here. We've already established that weather manipulation exists, but I want you to take a look at this website from 2007, my friends. That's 17 years ago. And it came out from the Telegraph. It says, "Scientists a step closer to steering hurricanes." Now, in this article, they explain how they're using technology in order to control, manipulate, and steer these types of storms, including tornadoes. So when you take things like this, and you also add these patents that have been out for decades, you begin to see a picture being painted of what is really going on. Now, this isn't to say that every bit of weather is manipulated and controlled. It means that they have the capability of doing this, and it's right in your face.
All right. So not only is weather modification real, but NOAA requires that people register their modification activities, with NOAA, and they have to be approved before they can even go forward with it. So you can't even do weather modification without the approval of NOAA. And another thing I wanted to mention was that hurricane modification has been around since 1947, but then they also had Project Storm Fury in the 1960s. Now, Benjamin Livingston, he blew the whistle on that one. He talked all about his research with the hurricane hunters and Project Storm Fury. And Project Storm Fury was a hurricane modification project from the beginning. It was weather modification all along. And with the funds that were made available for Project Storm Fury, they created a whole new entity of government called the National Hurricane Research Center, which was born out of weather modification. That's how it was created in the first place. So when you hear about the National Hurricane Research Center, I just want you to know that it got its origins from weather modification. All right, so he did mention scalar waves, and that is something else that I had talked about. I'm going to show another clip. This one is from Dane Wigington. He was on the Peggy Hall show, and he has a short clip that goes into a little bit more detail, and I like the way he explains it.
Was Hurricane Helene's path and behavior just the result of natural processes and climate patterns, or was it manipulated? The circular blue flashes seen in this video are frequency transmissions from the NEXRAD network of transmitter installations. All available science evidence makes clear that atmospheric frequency transmissions can and do have a repelling effect on air masses, especially if and when the air masses have been seeded with electrically conductive nanoparticles. The brighter the blue flash from a frequency transmission installation, the more pronounced and powerful the repelling effect on any air mass or storm in the vicinity will be. Where there are no blue flashes, there is no transmission, thus no repelling effect, thus no resistance for a migrating storm. Translation: a migrating storm will be hindered from moving toward frequency transmissions and will easily migrate in a direction with no transmissions. So again, I ask, was Hurricane Helene's path and behavior just an act of nature, or was it engineered? You decide.
All right. So Dane Wigington actually gives us a couple of more clues. One thing is he mentions the chemtrails and the nanoparticles of aluminum and other metals would actually help which actually help the atmosphere become more electrically charged and more responsive to both radio and microwaves. Now, another thing I wanted to mention was that he talks about each transmitter tower having like a blue circle around it. And when the atmosphere is more charged, it's going to respond to those repulsive frequencies. So the ones on the west were repelling, and the ones on the east were actually looked like they were powered down to allow for the storm to move through that area. Another thing I want to mention is interferometry. There could be two types of interferometry going on here, which is microwave interferometry and scalar interferometry. So when you see two of those radar beams cross, sometimes you'll see those interference patterns of parallel lines coming from the area where the beams are crossed. That actually can also push the wind, especially if the wind is charged or contains metals. This effect is called electric wind or ionic wind, and it can be pushed through microwave interference. And this is what I believe could have caused the winds over Maui. So I want to show a graphic. This is what in an interference pattern looks like. Now, this is from a linear array, but also phased arrays can do this too. So if you imagine a grid of elements instead of just a line of elements like this, that all are phased to the right timing so that their wave fronts can overlap in such a way to create these parallel wave fronts. Now, if those parallel wave fronts strike either charged air or particles of metal that are suspended in the air, it will push the air and create wind. Now, this wind is probably variable from anywhere from like 0 miles per hour all the way up to potentially supersonic winds could be possible with this type of technology. Now, I do want to show something else. So this is related. So this is the clouds over Maui on the August 7th, which was just the day before the fire that was there. Now, these cloud patterns look very much like the plane wave patterns that result from the interference of two microwave transmitters. However, they have those big ships with the domes on top that they nickname the HARP dome. Those HARP domes have phased arrays inside of them, which are capable of interfering with themselves. So they can create those types of interference patterns without the need for a second transmitter. All right. So moving along, we have seen, lots of evidence for weather manipulation in this storm, and they do have the capability to reduce the strength of these storms, but yet they choose not to. Their main excuse is their main excuse is liability. However, I think it does also provide them the cover of plausible deniability as well. But I wanted to reiterate the roads. So the roads surrounding Asheville were nearly completely covered, destroyed, washed out, or otherwise blocked, perhaps with debris. The only way out of Asheville was 26 South, because most of the roads that were surrounding, Asheville and the other communities and counties either looked like this or they looked like this and were completely impassable. Not only was the power out, or not only was the roads out, but the power was out as well. So along the southeast of the United States, over 3 million customers were without power at one point, with about 880,000 of them being just in the Carolinas alone. This created all kinds of issues where people couldn't get cell phone signals. They couldn't even the gas, they couldn't get gas at the gas station. They couldn't get cell phone signals. They ran out of, refrigeration for their food. And so it's a very dire situation there. I do want to also go into how to prepare for those sort of things. So there's a lot of people in that area that are what we would consider preppers. Preppers have been long kind of disparaged for their, their doomsday, doom and gloom, kind of scenarios that they prepare for. However, when it comes to prepping, I want to actually mention a couple of channels on YouTube. There's this one called Appalachia's Homestead with Patara. It's a very popular YouTube channel, and they do have boots on the ground in North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee. And they are also working with another preparedness channel called Pinball Preparedness. Together, they have set up a relief fund called the Flood Relief of East Tennessee, or Flood Relief East Tennessee. Now, in the research that I've done, this is the only legit grassroots relief organization that I know of that actually does have boots on the ground and actually is bringing in supplies and helping people. There are others that have been mentioned in the area, but this is the only one that I know of that's actually helping. So I do want to say that they urge you not to give to FEMA or to Red Cross, because Red Cross, we have seen in the past during Maui, they've withheld the supplies that were donated, and FEMA is actually turning away the volunteer help and threatening to arrest them in some cases, like the private helicopters that are going in to help people. So with that said, I want to play a video that introduces
Shane, real quick, just because we're talking about nonprofits and we've been covering a lot regarding the grassroots and non-grassroots in Maui, there is a Blue Ridge Strong Fund that was set up before this happened. And I don't want to go into the whole strong thing. We've done videos on that, and like we'll put like a video right here if you want to hear more about the nonprofits, the strong movements that were involved with the Lahaina fire. But I just thought that was interesting how they already had that fund set up, and I would highly recommend not to donate to the Blue Ridge Strong Fund, because it's very unlikely that the victims will get much of that at all. And I did want to mention the nonprofit Samaritan's Purse. And this is, I don't want to give like a strong opinion on the organization, because I know there's a lot of backing. It was founded by Billy Graham, and it's now run by Franklin Graham, which I believe is his son. I just wanted to bring that up because they were involved with the cleanup of the Lahaina fire, and now they are on the ground in 5 different areas to help with the relief here. But they are based in this area, so it makes sense that they would help this area because that is their community. And from what I can see, they are doing a lot of good things. I believe they have helicopters. I think they're using it to help airlift supplies. The reason I don't recommend donating is they have a very high operation cost. They have their top executives make a lot of money, and they have a very nice campus. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not trying to discourage any support for them. I do think they are helping out. So I just wanted to mention that before you moved on.
So besides the Flood Relief East Tennessee, Samaritan's Purse has also been on the ground, and the other people with boots on the ground have said that Samaritan's Purse is helping out. And I've also seen secondhand, but I have seen it, that the Southern Baptists are also boots on the ground, and they are helping. They are handing out supplies. So I would say that don't give to FEMA, don't give to Red Cross, don't give to Blue Ridge Strong, but do give to Flood Relief East Tennessee. So with that said, I want to go into some of the boots on the ground and introduce Appalachia's Homestead with Pataya. She's very popular among not just our viewers, but she has a very loyal viewership of her own.
So good evening, guys. Welcome to Appalachia's Homestead. It's a little humid. I want to turn on the air just for a second. Is that bothering you? Is that too loud? So guys, welcome back to the channel. I want to let you know I love you. I've missed you. This is going to be an odd video, but I think it's an important one to put out. If you don't know, James and I have been boots on the ground Saturday and yesterday over the weekend. I certainly have a lot of strong thoughts and opinions about what is going on, and I want to let you know that I've joined up with Pinball Preparedness in order to help keep donations rolling. I will put the link down below. Overwhelmed with requests for where to donate, and I don't blame you. That's why I kind of took my time trying to figure out who's setting up what's going on. We want to make sure the funds, like me, if I'm donating, I want it to go to the cause. I don't want it to go to some bureaucrat, okay? And that's the main problem that we're seeing with a lot of things with disasters. I can tell you right now that East Tennesseans at this time feel a little irritated at how this is going right now, and I'll just leave it at that. And I will tell you this, with firsthand experience as in terms of boots on the ground Saturday and yesterday, if it wasn't for locals and for the communities coming together and for East Tennesseans showing up and delivering and to help, these people were on their own. And that should make you think a lot about your preparedness. Who is representing you? Who is representing us? And where are they in a crisis? I think we're seeing that firsthand again, and I think we're finding out. Ask the folks in Maui, right? What you are seeing in social media and what you are seeing on the news, if you're seeing anything at all, is only a scratch of the surface in terms of the devastation. You don't have to like me, you don't have to agree with me on politics or how I raise my cows or anything else, but I do ask that you at least trust that one little tidbit, because it's the truth. And it doesn't matter who you are, what color you are, who you vote for. We're all being treated the same way. Guys, preparedness is everything. It doesn't make you crazy. It doesn't make you a doomsdayer. It doesn't make you anything. Ask everybody in our region right now about preparedness, and they will tell you.
Yeah. So I didn't intend to actually make this video about preparedness, but I do want to touch on preparedness. So disasters can happen anytime, any place, and preparedness is not necessarily something to be ridiculed or called crazy. I highly suggest that people be prepared, not only storing as much water as they can, but having a way to distill their own water. So you can collect rainwater and you can create a solar distiller for when you don't have power. But, you know, so there's going to be a lot of times when you don't have electricity and you're going to have to rely on, you know, old school ways of doing things. And so you can make a solar distiller to create your own water, to create your own clean water, but you also want to have plenty of dry goods on hand. Now, I know a lot of people will stock their deep freeze full of perishables, but that's actually a bad idea in a long-term situation like this. You want to have plenty of dry goods on hand as well. All right. So before I switch gears and just do some trash talking, I do want to also highlight another one of our heroes that are boots on the ground. This is a smaller scale operation, but she does have a lot to say about it.
I want to share with y'all some things you may not know about what's happening in the North Carolina mountains in the aftermath of Helene. Here's number one. If you have friends or family that are headed into the mountains or who live there, the looting has picked up major steam. I was advised yesterday by a county sheriff to make sure that anybody out and about is carrying, and in his words, carrying with the safety off. There are very aggressive people out there, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this. It's not because they're necessarily awful. They're desperate. Desperate people do desperate things, y'all. And why are they desperate? Because there's no water in some of these communities. We have neighbors in North Carolina with no water. And all I can say is this: the government ain't coming to save you. Not now, not ever, because they don't care about you, the people, anymore. It is the citizens who are going to have to step it up. And they said, well, we don't trust the relief organizations anymore. Y'all, we have lost our organizations to grifters. We have lost our organizations to liars. And so we have to rely on each other, because that's how this country was built. This country was built patriot by patriot. We are not grifters. We are neighbors. And the patriots that are in the mountains, if you see this, if your family sees this, hear me now. You are not forgotten by the rest of North Carolina. And if you are not in North Carolina, then there are ways that you can give. But can I just remind y'all of something? You cannot eat money. You cannot drink money. This is why you keep a stash of water on hand. This is why you keep a stash of food on hand. But for those of y'all that are not in affected areas, if you can take your donated items and send it to the mountains, then send it with a friend. And I'm going to tell you something. If you will share this with somebody who doesn't know what's happening in North Carolina, they need to know. They need to know that there are entire towns gone. Chimney Rock is gone, a beautiful town. Swannanoa, gone. Montreat, gone. Other towns damaged beyond repair. That means our geography has changed, our culture is at risk, but most importantly, our people, our generational people have lost their generational homes. The Baptists are doing a great job out of Boone. Samaritan's Purse is on the ground. I trust those two organizations. I wish I had trust for more, because I don't trust this government, but I trust the people of North Carolina. Y'all, the biggest thing you can do, pray. Pray right now, pray fervently that people will turn their hearts back to God, and pray for a hedge of protection around all those who have seen things they should never have to see. When you have children that are seeing bodies on the ground and towns gone, we're going to have to answer for that one day, y'all. Please pray, please do something. And for those of y'all that have already done something, I can't thank you enough.
All right, that was Lee Brown I wanted to mention, and she's another one of those people with boots on the ground that are actually getting supplies in. So now that we've talked about the good guys, I want to talk a little bit more about the bad guys. And this is a Twitter post about someone who had actually called FEMA, and the FEMA agent on the line was stunned to hear that Biden has not yet approved disaster assistance for individuals or households yet. Not to mention, they also had malfunctions on their websites. So when it comes to the Federal Emergency Making Association or agency, they have a site that talks about their priorities. Now, it seems like they've really kind of changed their spin when it comes to these themes of wokeness. So I've seen this equity theme kind of embedded even more so into not only FEMA's priorities, but the redevelopment plans as well. And they also talk about something called climate resilience. So it looks like FEMA's priorities are not necessarily where they ought to be. And I wanted to play another video from someone who has boots on the ground, who talks about all of the failures of the Federal Emergency Making Agency.
Around us, at every county, oh my goodness, the damage is devastating. Buncombe County, Mitchell County, all around us, McDowell County, Henderson County. The damage is just incredible. Chimney Rock, parts of Asheville, parts of Hendersonville, Marshall, Bryson City, Cherokee, and the lower parts of Lake Lure were or are still underwater. There are people that are still stranded. They're not getting help. They're stranded, they're landlocked, they're in floods. And FEMA, okay, so I did go up into Asheville yesterday. There's one way in and one way out. I actually made it up into Asheville and around into OT. And the damage, I mean, houses literally washed down the road, or they're covered. There's mudslides. But Asheville, there's so many that you can smell it. The stench is becoming unbearable. Like, you can smell it. There are that many. Where I went to, we had family members in Asheville. We got to the house. They said that FEMA was there, asked what they needed. There's 2 babies in the house. Asked what they needed. They said, we need water and formula. They left, never came back. How long are babies supposed to wait on formula? How long are people supposed to wait on water? How long are they supposed to wait? Where are they? But here's another problem. So they're telling people to donate to FEMA, not to bring supplies in, to donate to FEMA, and FEMA's got it under control. That is not the case. FEMA does not have it under control. Like I said, there are literally people still in floods right now that cannot get out. We need help desperately. The Fairview, North Carolina fire chief is turning away private helicopters that are trying to come in and help. Everybody, they're turning help away. The people are trying to help, and our help is being turned away. We had family members there. They literally watched multiple neighbors. One was hit by a tree, others were washed away. Literally, the house was floating away with people in it. We were absolutely not prepared for the devastation that came. No, that kind of warning did not come. I just don't understand where the help is. You say FEMA's taking care of this. Well, they made their presence and then they left. Black Mountain held a town meeting. The people were officially told, no help is coming. If you can get out, get out. There's one way out, 26 South. The supplies that are coming are going to be for the first responders that are still doing search and rescue.
The wrong place at the wrong time. Good luck to you. The government's not coming to save you.
Well, and that's what a lot of the talk around here is they want these mountains. They want this land for the resources. There are many resources here. And that's what the talk is. They want this land.
Because the government wouldn't mind people dying so that they could take the land? Wow.
Yes, that is correct. Yes. Yes. We know the resources here. We know what's here. Huge lithium deposits. in Kings Mountain. There's actually another one just outside of Asheville as well. 2 huge lithium deposits. FEMA made an appearance and left. They're not. There's no. The people are rescuing the people. I did see some search and rescue, but I'm not seeing FEMA.
All right. So that sums it up basically with the lack of the response.
And, yeah, again, that's a parallel to Lahaina when boats were coming into the harbor, they were being turned away, and there was a effort to prevent the victims from getting help.
Yes, they are also turning away private helicopters that have been trying to deliver supplies, and they've even been turning away people who come in with their truck convoys and things like that. And there have even been stories of people with their trucks getting their tires slashed. Now, I'm not sure who is allegedly doing this, but it doesn't surprise me that the relief effort is being hindered in every way possible, and the resources are being channeled to those who are absolutely not helping at all. All right. So with that said, she mentioned the lithium mines. Now, I also want to show this post from TikTok, and I want to give a shout out to my friend Skylar, who first sent this to me. I was at the time not aware of the lithium deposits in North Carolina, but I would have probably found it eventually, but she clued me onto this as well. So the New York Times also has an article about the lithium mines in North Carolina. There is one in near Asheville already. This is the Albemarle lithium mine that's already in operation. And the other one that's scheduled to be built in the area should be operational by next year, 2025. All right. So that brings it into the lithium discussion and their natural resources. But I also wanted to go into a little bit of the history and toss it over to Tracy.
Okay. So another parallel with Lahaina is that Asheville is a tourist destination. They receive about 2 million visitors a year. It has, some people refer to it as the Paris of the South. It has a very long, rich history. One of those landmarks is the Biltmore Estate, built by the Vanderbilt family in the early 1900s. A lot of people visit that. And so the fact that there are so many culturally significant monuments, buildings, and areas, again, makes it very eerily similar to Lahaina. Oh, and also I did want to bring up the population of just Asheville is 91,000. So if you kind of put that in perspective, for example, Lahaina had 13,000. So this is a really significant tragedy, and there are many, many people that live in this area that need help.
Yeah. All right. So now that Tracy has touched on Asheville's past, I want to touch on Asheville's future. So they have plans for shaping Asheville's next 20 years. This is a plan that was designed in 2016 that goes till 2036. It's called the City Council Vision 2036. And they have this plan as well as the Asheville Closing the Gap plan. Now, this Closing the Gap plan is very equity based. So that woke theme of equity is completely embedded throughout this document. This document does include multimodal transportation, which includes walking paths, bike lanes, bus lanes, and possibly even rail transit. And this multimodal network is designed to cover most of Asheville, making Asheville another one of those 15-minute cities or smart cities, if you will. And this includes not just the transit corridors, but also green infrastructure and urban centers, and everything that dovetails with these smart city plans is also found in these documents as well. Another thing that they mention very heavily is affordable housing. They are trying to make housing more affordable, but what they're doing is actually just building cheaper housing that they can kind of funnel the people into. And one of the excuses that they give for housing being so expensive is the cars. They're saying the average monthly vehicle cost is what's prohibiting people from affording homes. And I think that's really just obfuscation, and they're pointing their finger at smoke and mirrors. They're trying to blame the cars for there not being enough houses. And that also brings me to something else, which is also included in these plans, is the short-term rental restrictions. And I know Tracy has covered that many times in the past, and I'm going to toss it over to Tracy to cover this.
Okay, so in Lahaina, this was brought up kind of after the fact. So it seems like now with these disasters, they're bringing it up a little sooner, but they're blaming the housing shortage or the shortage of affordable housing on short-term rentals. Now, every time I bring this up, I get comments pushing back saying that short-term rentals do affect the housing market, and they do, but it's not so simple. It's not the one cause for this problem. The problem is much bigger. I know in Maui, I study this very extensively, and the housing shortage has been going on for decades. It's not just when these short-term rentals came to town. And I do have personal experience running a short-term rental, so I can give my personal feedback. And I know a lot of people that used to do this. The county I live in, Los Angeles County, has really taken very aggressive steps to prevent people from short-term renting their property. And they have restricted it to 120 days. So even though you have a legal rental, you can't really earn that much on it. In 120 days, it might sound like a lot, but it's very small. I used to go through that in less than 6 months. I already hit my limit. And the housing prices have only gone up. I haven't seen any reduction in the housing prices. And I do strongly believe that these fees and these restrictions are being supported and pushed by the hotel and restaurant industry because, you know, that's their competition. And in West Maui, they have passed a bill that will ban most of the short-term rentals in West Maui starting July of next year. So I did want to touch on that because we're seeing this issue come up a lot. And I think it's a way to also cause division within the population because, you know, property ownership is very much nowadays a luxury. So, you know, people that are able to own and those who don't, who are forced to rent, the renters have really been suffering because of this. But the problem of rents being so high, it's a lot more complicated than that. There are so many other aspects of rental prices that come into effect. But I did want to give my little 2 cents on what they're saying about short-term rentals as being a very good way for turning a profit. Oftentimes, the income will only help offset the cost of mortgage, property taxes, and maintenance and utilities. So that's what I want to say about that.
Yeah, she did also mention private property rights. Private property rights are under attack, and it's because of this kind of, you could call it Marxist or communist push to abolish private property rights. And not Karl Marx, but what's his name? Klaus Schwab himself has even said, you know, you will own nothing. And that's because they're trying to abolish private property rights, which is one of the points of the Communist Manifesto, is to abolish private property rights. So this looks like not only is this, you know, world government, UN, World Economic Forum, not only is it somewhat fascist in nature with its public-private partnerships, but it's also somewhat communist in nature with its abolition of private property rights. So I just also wanted to mention that as well.
But again, I want to really stress the importance that this event stays in the media. It stays in front of, you know, it stays on the forefront, because what happens is, you know, people forget about it, but the people suffering have not, because they are still either dealing with the loss of their property. A lot of these people have seen their family and friends pass away in front of their eyes. And, you know, hearing about these awful stories of deceased, you know, in trees and all around is really, really heartbreaking. And I think that that's going to do it, is as much as that we have found, and that's a lot of information. So thank you guys all for being here and for the support that I got for the first video. I got a lot of interaction. A lot of people are very concerned, and not just on this channel, but I'm seeing a lot of other channels comparing this to Maui, and I have found so many similarities. So it is kind of turning into a Maui 2.0, unfortunately. So with that, I'm going to close everything out. If you're here for the live chat, thank you guys so much. I love hearing your feedback, and If you have not subscribed, please do so, and like, comment, share this video with as many people as you can. So with that, thank you all for being here, and we will see you all soon. Bye.